Good morning, comrades, and today I'm gonna tell you why I would never buy an Up GTI. And the reason for that is this. This is the Up TSI, and well, first a bit of a background story. This is the original naturally aspirated 60 horsepower Up that coincidentally I had as my temporary daily car, and after that I was very fond of it, and we decided to buy an Up TSI 90 horsepower turbocharged Up. And as you can see, a year later, well, actually slightly less than a year, because the car is slightly less than a year in my possession, this car is, well, fully modified. There is nothing stock of it left. You can also look inside. So yeah, I can pretty much tell you that I know what I'm talking about regarding the Up modifications, specifications. And because of that, because this car, I must say, is probably definitely one of the most popular Ups in the world, if not the most popular, because again, it's completely modified for the track. Right now, it's almost 13,000 kilometers, out of which 10,000 kilometers is on the Nürburgring alone. We have plenty of videos where the car upsets, well, mandatory pun here, multiple supercars. So because of that, because the Up is linked to me, when the Up GTI was announced last year at Charoudin, everyone was like, "Oh, Misha, you should get this, you should get this." And initially I was very excited about this because you can do a lot of cool stuff, and especially if you're a big mega concern as Volkswagen, when you have unlimited budget pretty much, and you can do a lot. But I'll get back to that in a bit. So, but now that the Up GTI has been released and that I've seen the car, well, mostly on the video, on press release, and recently also on the Grand Tour video, it has confirmed my disappointment. So let me explain to you what the main issue is. So first, by the way, going back to the naturally aspirated Up, the very first one, it was released or created as a car that you could get for sub 10,000 euro, and that would have everything you need in a car for daily use. And they succeeded in that, because again, the car has everything. Although it is small in appearance, it's sub 10,000 euro base price, but you have plenty of it. You have like rear doors as well, and actually very spacious. We went on a couple of trips with 5 people in it, and it was amazing. We can have a look inside. Also, you can fit a lot of stuff, random stuff in the back. So it works great. Now, then after that, we have this Up TSI, which is the base price 12,500 euro if you go for the TSI engine, which is 90 horsepower. And again, going back to the horsepower, if this is the only reason for you to buy a car, this car originally, if you are in Europe or a country which has decent fuel, 98 octane or even higher, this car produces, I believe, stock even more than 90 horsepower on the wheels. This is what we measured when we put it on a dyno. This happens to every single car, because the base values, every advertised horsepower value is created to be ensured that if you are in a country which is known for having bad fuel, you will still have those values that they advertise. So in a country such as Germany, with proper fuel, you get more than that. So what I want to say, if you want to buy an Up GTI only for the fact to say like, hey, I have 115 horsepower Up, well, But let's get to the main point. Sub 10,000 euro, 12,500 euro, Up GTI 17, okay, 16,995 in Germany. In other countries probably even more. So almost 5,000 euro difference over the Up TSI, and probably even more, because that's the base price, and who gets a base price car, right? Because this car already, although base price is 12,500 euro, was with all the options, which I actually didn't need or want, was close to 18,000 euro. But this is the car which was available in Germany at all, because, well, they're pretty rare, the Up TSIs. So anyway, now let's go over the differences that you get or don't get in an Up GTI, which they advertise as the performance version, which many of you think that I should be getting instead, because, well, Up GTI is better than just a casual TSI. So first of all, appearances on the outside. Well, you can see that it's pretty much identical car, and the same goes for the Up GTI. The only thing which is different and that everyone's so crazy about are the 17-inch wheels that you get on the GTI. I'm sorry that I don't have the GTI here for comparison, but bear with me. So 17-inch wheels. It is no rocket science that bigger wheels create great appearance, of course, and if you have plenty of horsepower to compensate the extra weight and size of the rotational mass, then it's okay. For example, with the Porsche GT3 RS, when you have 21-inch wheels on the back or 20-inch on the GTR. But on the smaller car, low horsepower car, you need to have as little as weight as possible. So although the appearance on the GTI would be amazing with 17-inch wheel, you reduce the acceleration, the torque. So thereby it's useless. It's great appearance, but still it does not add anything to performance. So it's even actually a downgrade, the 17-inch wheels in terms of performance for the GTI. Now, the brakes behind it, I believe the front calipers are the same. And this is no issue. This is no issue at all, because again, driving this car with this current car has 126 horsepower on the wheels, so roughly 150 horsepower, maybe more on the crank. And the front brakes are perfectly fine. But up GTI, I mean, Volkswagen, why would you still have drum brakes even on the TSI, let alone on the GTI? Because, well, by now within the up community it is known that you can fit the brakes from the old Lupo easily, and up was built pretty much on the Polo base, on the Polo platform, so you could, as a Volkswagen, as a manufacturer, you could easily fit rear, well, brakes with disc brakes, and that would add a lot. Now, apart from that, let's go to the engine. Now, I already explained to you the horsepower number, but this exact engine is also fitted in the Up GTI, the TSI 3-cylinder 1-liter engine. And, well, it has a bit of extra power by upping the turbo pressure, which I done the same to this one. Like I told you already, this car generates 126 horsepower at the wheels with all the mods. And a lot of people say, well, chip tuning may be not reliable, but again, this car has done over 10,000 kilometers, 13 in total, with, well, let's say 10,000 of it in total is with the current horsepower numbers, because I tuned it with around 3,000 kilometers on the clock. And in total, like what, 10,000 kilometers in total, so let's say with 126 horsepower on the wheels, let's say 5,000 kilometers on the track, on a racetrack, really flooring it all the time, and not a single issue was found. The drive shafts are fine, everything is fine, the engine itself is fine, and the gearbox. And going to the gearbox, because I covered the engine already, because, well, that's not the reason why you should buy a GTI, because you can get a TSI, and for only 25 horsepower more if you feel it at all. Gearbox is the only thing that's different in the GTI, because here in the TSI you have a 5-speed gearbox, and in the GTI you have a 6-speed gearbox. The only benefit to that I can see is on a 6-speed gearbox you can have closer ratios. That means you need to shift faster, so the acceleration would be improved to compensate the lack of the extra horsepower, well, the 25 extra horsepower. I don't think you will even feel it again. And to cruise on the highways in the 6th gear for the lower fuel consumption, because on the racetrack, where you go downhill on the Nürburg, you have a section such as Vauxhall and Schwedenkreuz, where you max out the top speed of this car in the 4th gear, because this car goes in the 4th gear already over 200 kilometers an hour, so you don't need even 5th gear in this car. So again, 6th gear in the GTI, I mean, it does not add any value. And speaking of the top speed and the highest gear, this car, having only 60 horsepower, I already also achieved a top speed of over 200 kilometers an hour on the dash. And since, well, the Up GTI is being advertised as a car that can reach 197 kilometers per hour, well, the old car can do it as well if you just go long enough downhill with the wind in your back. But you get it, it's not really a crazy feature. Okay, if we reach 197, then the new Up GTI is useless.
I'm gonna have to lift it.
No, one more kilometer. Yes!
One more.
One more. Yes! With 4 people.
What am I going? 199?
200! Oh my god! Now let's move on. Let me show you the interior bit, and for that I'm gonna use the original up because I'm gonna talk about the seats. And actually interior in general is pretty much the same when it comes to GTI and some minor upgrades, but the most important issue I have is the seats. Actually the form of it is completely the same. You only get slightly different, well, the traditional GTI pattern in it, but that's it. People who have watched my videos for a while and went through the whole up experience with me know that me and everyone who has driven up with me have said that those are one of the most uncomfortable seats ever imaginable if you go for longer trips. If you buy this car purely as a grocery car, it's perfectly fine, amazing, but you cannot adjust the headrest. And although you cannot do that either with a racing seat, still even this is far more comfortable than the original seats fitted in the up. The main issue that you have, however, since the GTI is being advertised as a performance car, and since, again, with only 115 horsepower, you cannot go drag racing, or you must be a racer. So let's presume people who buy it, they want to enjoy like twisty roads, sometimes maybe even the racetrack, because you can really enjoy the Nordschleife. You don't need a high power car. But once you have lateral G's, so you go sideways, well, not sideways, but you go in the corner, and you have, you don't have any support. As a matter of fact, once I fitted semi-slicks on this car, on the TSI, and the lateral grip increased dramatically, I couldn't drive more than 2 laps because I would suffer from a severe back pain. And this is something what you get with many cars when you have a lot of grip, but the only grip that you have when you need to hold yourself onto the steering wheel and onto the pedals and your lower body is just moving everywhere, you're gonna damage your lower back. So again, I mean, Volkswagen, you have plenty of resources, models that you could have retrofitted. For example, well, again, the seats from other Volkswagen model, a GTI model with better back support, lower back support. Same for the engine. You could have retrofitted any bigger engine in it, and again, it fits. You could fit a 4-cylinder engine. You just need to modify something. But if people like JP Performance can do it in their backyard, pretty much, well, rhetorically speaking, then the big manufacturers of Volkswagen could have done it as well. So the seats is my main concern as well. And then moving on, well, suspension wise, I've seen the video of the Grand Tour. I don't see any crazy suspension travel there, so I think they fixed it. But again, if you're gonna add more high performance tires there, because the video that was used in the circumstances that were in the Grand Tour, it was very rainy, so there was not much grip in the corners possible, so I don't see much body travel. But I think if it's going to be grippy, dry, and if you're going to add dry tires, then it's going to be then you might have additional suspension travel. But to finalize, the major issue, which was also discussed in the Grand Tour, and my major issue up until today, because I didn't have time to fix it, I already have the solution, you just need to code it out, is the fact that you cannot switch off the traction control in the up. Now, it's of course no issue, like when the Grand Tour said if your 17-year-old nephew gonna borrow it, then it's all fine. But if you're gonna use the GTI for its advertised purposes, which is performance driving on the track, then the car will break you down on the corners because it does not want you to lose grip, lose traction, thereby the name traction control. But the biggest issue that I have, or actually that you suffer from then, is because of the traction control, because it's constantly breaking down in the corners. It creates a lot of wear on brake pads, on brake discs, and because of the extra heat, it may even, well, your wheel bearings may suffer as well. I had cases when I went through the set of brake discs, when brake discs would crack after 2 weeks of use. Look at the huge crack here and a crack here. This is something I haven't shown you earlier this year, but you may recognize this pattern. Actually, there's another crack here, so it's completely FUBAR. Yeah, this is the brake disc of my up. Something that I put, that was the first upgraded disc that I put on there, and yeah, this is like that. And you would think the up is actually not a heavy car, so the brakes shouldn't be that demanding, especially on the Nordschleife. But you know the reason why it happened? The freaking traction control, because it kicks in all the time, and traction control on the up works by breaking down the, the front. So thereby, traction control is a bitch on the track, and that's why it's also annoying. And when I was driving the car on the track, sometimes I was driving behind someone and like, oh, that guy cannot brake, that guy cannot drive, you can smell the brake pads. But apparently those were my own brake pads because the traction control is braking. And this is just crazy. This is... I just like cannot come up with words how it is important to switch off a traction control, or at least to have an in-between mode like you have, for example, on BMWs, the MDM mode, or some other performance mode on any other car manufacturer, something in between, like a sport mode on Toyota, for example, where the traction control will let you go for like, I don't know, 1 or 2 seconds until you release the throttle, and well, the car will see, okay, now I really need to get in. I don't know. So there are probably also other features, but I hope you get my point that 5,000 euros in price difference does not justify all those issues that Volkswagen has not solved with the GTI model. Okay, the only advantage that I have mentioned is probably the gearbox, which allows you better acceleration, maybe durability, but the gearbox on the TSI, which has a lot more horsepower than, well, not a lot more, but a lot more horsepower, 126 wheel horsepower over 115 horsepower on a crank over GTI, has never suffered any issue on this car on a track use. So it's not done for durability. So I hope you understand why me personally would never get an up GTI, especially after having this already, which is gazillion times better, and in a stock form this would not be a lot much worse. But however, if you just want to have an amazing cool looking car, because I really love how the ups look, especially after a couple of modifications here and there, and just a general grocery car but that can go fast, but you don't want to do a lot of track driving, but not too many twisty roads, because then again the traction control will gonna add some bills to your account for all the brake pads and brake discs, then the up GTI is probably for you. But unfortunately not for me, and thereby I hopefully once and for all I have explained it to you. So please guys, stop tagging me in every Volkswagen up GTI post, because this is simply not a car for me, and I hope you understand why.